There is something happening in your body right now that has nothing to do with age and everything to do with signal. Not the signal you think you're sending, not the one you've been told you're sending by the mirror, by the calendar, by every system that profits from you believing your best years have already passed. A different signal. The one your cells are actually receiving at this moment. The one generated not by time, but by the electromagnetic frequency your heart and nervous system are broadcasting into your own biology, into the quantum field of your own body, from the inside out. Here is what most people have never been told about aging. It is not primarily a biological event. It is a coherence event. And that distinction is going to change everything you thought you knew about what is actually happening inside you tonight. Your cells do not age on a fixed schedule. They age in response to the information environment they live inside. And that information environment, the chemical bath, the hormonal climate, the electromagnetic field, the signal quality of your nervous system is not determined by how many years have passed since you were born. It is determined with extraordinary precision by the frequency you are currently broadcasting. Let that land for a moment. Your cells are not counting the years. They are reading the signal. And if the signal changes, the cellular response changes with it. This is not a motivational concept. This is the mechanism underlying an entire field of biological research that most people never encounter because it does not sell products. It sells nothing except the radical possibility that the body you are living in right now is more responsive to your inner broadcast than you have ever been allowed to believe. Tonight, something in your field is shifting. You can feel it, even if you don't have words for it yet. There is a quality of attention you brought to this moment that is different from the attention you've been carrying around for weeks, maybe months. A kind of opening, and your body is already reading that opening as a signal. Your cells are already beginning to respond. This video is going to show you exactly what that signal is, how it works at the level of your cells and your quantum field. What you have been broadcasting that has been accelerating the aging process without your conscious consent, and how to unlock what I'm calling your youth aura, the specific frequency state in which your body's regenerative intelligence comes back online at full power. This is not about looking younger. This is about returning your biology to the frequency at which it was designed to regenerate, repair, and radiate. And that frequency is not gone. It has never been gone. It has simply been buried under a signal that was never yours to begin with. Let's begin. Your body is a quantum system. This is not a metaphor. At the level of atoms and molecules, your body operates according to the laws of quantum mechanics. Every cell in your body contains approximately 10 trillion atoms, and each of those atoms is mostly empty space threaded through with vibrating fields of energy. You are, at your most fundamental level, a pattern of organized vibration, a coherent field of quantum information expressing itself as biological form. Now, here is where it gets precise and important. The coherence of that quantum field, the degree to which the vibrations in your body are organized, synchronized, and harmonically aligned, rather than chaotic and discordant, directly determines the quality of the biological processes running inside you. Coherent fields support coherent biology. Disorganized fields produce disorganized biology. And disorganized biology is what aging, at the cellular level, actually looks like. When researchers look at cells that are aging rapidly, they find a specific pattern of dysfunction. The mitochondria, the energy-producing organelles inside each cell, become less efficient. The telomeres, the protective caps on the ends of chromosomes that determine how many times a cell can divide and repair itself, shorten faster than they should. The DNA repair mechanisms, the cellular machinery that catches and corrects errors in your genetic code every single day, become sluggish. The inflammatory signaling pathways, the ones that should activate briefly in response to injury and then quiet down, stay chronically activated. All of this looks like a biological problem, and it is. But what drives it is a signal problem. Every one of those cellular processes, mitochondrial efficiency, telomere maintenance, DNA repair, inflammatory regulation, is sensitive to the information environment inside the body. And the primary architects of that information environment are not your diet, not your exercise habits, not even your sleep, though all of those matter. The primary architects are the electromagnetic field generated by your heart, the neurochemical climate generated by your nervous system, and the hormonal cascade generated by your stress response, all three of which are directly modulated by your internal frequency state. This is the part that changes everything. Your internal frequency state, the quality of what you are broadcasting from the inside of your own body, is the master signal that your cells are reading and responding to. Every single day, every single hour. Right now, as you listen to these words. And that signal is something you can consciously change. If this is landing for you, here's something I want to share. Have you spent years trying to feel lit up again? Visualizations, affirmations, vibration work, and the light still won't hold? Every one of those methods is telling you to push harder, do more, add another technique. It's not working because the issue isn't that you don't have enough light. 6 specific patterns are sitting on top of it. They're called the frequencies of forgetting. The remembering field, a quantum guide to returning to the light. You forgot you were carrying walks through all 5 parts of getting those patterns off you. Every tool you used tried to add more light. This one lifts what's been sitting on the light you already carry. The longer you wait, the harder they get to clear. So go open it tonight. The link is in the pinned comment below. Now, back to the thread we were following. The HeartMath Institute has been measuring the heart's electromagnetic field for over 3 decades. And what they've found is extraordinary. Your heart generates an electromagnetic field that extends several feet beyond your body in every direction. This is the outer layer of your aura, the part that other people feel when they enter your space. But the inner layer of that same field, the one that permeates your own body and every cell within it, is equally powerful. Your heart's electromagnetic field is the most powerful oscillating field in your body, roughly 60 times stronger in amplitude than the field generated by your brain, and it reaches every cell in your body with every single beat. Every beat of your heart is a broadcast, and your cell are the audience. When your heart is in a state of coherence, when the rhythm of your heartbeat is smooth, ordered, and harmonically organized, the electromagnetic signal it broadcasts into your body carries a very specific quality of information. Researchers describe this as high coherence signal. And high coherence signal has been shown to directly influence gene expression, immune function, hormonal regulation, and cellular repair processes in measurable, reproducible ways. When your heart is in a state of incoherence, when your heartbeat is jagged, erratic, and disorganized because you are under chronic stress, carrying unresolved fear, or running old emotional patterns on repeat, the signal it broadcasts is chaotic. And chaotic signal produces the exact cellular environment in which aging accelerates. This is your youth aura in its most precise scientific definition. It is not a glow you can see in the mirror. It is the coherence quality of the electromagnetic field your heart is broadcasting into your own biology. And it is directly, measurably tied to how fast or how slowly your body is aging at the cellular level. Now let's talk about what you have been broadcasting. Most people, by the time they reach their 30s, 40s, or beyond, have been living for years inside a frequency they didn't choose. The frequency of accumulated stress, the frequency of chronic low-level anxiety about the future, the frequency of old grief that never fully moved through, the frequency of the belief absorbed from culture and conditioning, and the mirror and the calendar, that the body is on a one-way trajectory toward decline, and there is nothing to be done about it. This is the dimmed signal, and it is extraordinarily common. Not because people are doing anything wrong, but because the world we live in is specifically structured to generate it. Chronic stress is the default setting of modern life, and chronic stress is, at the cellular level, a coherence killer. Here is what happens in your body when you are in a chronic stress state. Your hypothalamus, the brain region that interfaces between your nervous system and your endocrine system, signals your adrenal glands to release cortisol. Cortisol is not inherently bad. In short bursts, it is brilliantly adaptive. It sharpens your focus, mobilizes your energy, and prepares your body for action. But when cortisol is chronically elevated, when the stress signal never fully turns off, it begins to do something devastating to your cellular environment. Chronic cortisol suppresses the activity of an enzyme called telomerase. Telomerase is the cellular machinery responsible for maintaining and repairing your telomeres, those protective caps on your chromosomes. When telomerase activity goes down, telomere shortening accelerates, and telomere length is one of the most reliable biological markers of cellular age. This is not theory. This is the work of Dr. Elizabeth Blackburn, who won the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 2009 for her research on telomeres and telomerase. Her subsequent research, done in collaboration with health psychologist Dr. Elissa Epel, specifically examined the relationship between psychological stress, the chronic low-grade kind, and telomere shortening. What they found was that the people who perceived themselves as most chronically stressed had measurably shorter telomeres than those who did not, even controlling for other variables. They were, at the cellular level, biologically older. But here is the part of that research that rarely gets discussed. The relationship ran in both directions. Reducing the stress response, shifting the internal signal, was associated with measurable changes in telomerase activity. The cellular environment was responsive. It was not fixed. Your cells are not locked into a trajectory. They are reading a signal, and the signal can change. What Blackburn and Epel also documented And this is the piece that most summaries leave out entirely, is that the perception of stress mattered as much as the objective stressor itself. Two people could face the same difficult circumstance, the same work pressure, the same relationship strain, and show dramatically different telomere profiles depending on how their nervous systems were processing the experience. The one who perceived the situation as threatening and uncontrollable showed accelerated telomere shortening. The one whose nervous system was better regulated, whose internal broadcast remained more coherent under pressure, showed significantly less cellular aging from the same external event. This tells you something critical. The aging is not in the circumstances. The aging is in the signal the circumstances generate inside you. And the signal is something you have far more influence over than you have been told. If what we're exploring tonight is resonating with you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe so we can keep going deeper together. Now let's go deeper into what the youth aura actually is, because it has more layers than just stress reduction. This is where it becomes genuinely extraordinary. In 1962, a biologist named Leonard Hayflick made a discovery that seemed to confirm the inevitability of cellular aging. He found that normal human cells, when grown in a laboratory, would divide a finite number of times, roughly 40 to 60 divisions, before entering a state called senescence, where they stopped dividing and began to malfunction. This became known as the Hayflick limit, and for decades, it was interpreted as proof that aging was biologically programmed and inevitable. But subsequent research revealed something Hayflick's original work didn't capture. The Hayflick limit describes cells in a laboratory isolated from the living system they normally inhabit, stripped of the electromagnetic field, the hormonal environment, the quantum coherence of the whole organism. In a living body, cells do not operate as isolated units. They operate as part of a field, and the field matters enormously. What the laboratory setting removed was precisely the thing we're talking about tonight. The coherent field of the whole organism, the heart's electromagnetic broadcast, the neurochemical environment of a regulated nervous system, the biophoton communication network of a body that is living and breathing and feeling and present. When you strip all of that away and study a cell in isolation, you are no longer studying how aging actually works inside a living human being. You are studying what happens to a cell when it is cut off from its field. And that, it turns out, is a very different question. Research in the field of epigenetics, the study of how gene expression is regulated by factors above and beyond the DNA sequence itself, has shown that the same genetic material can produce radically different biological outcomes depending on the environment it's operating in. Your genes are not a fixed sentence. They are more like a keyboard. The same keys can produce completely different music depending on who is playing and what signal they are receiving. Your frequency is the player. Your cells are the keyboard. The music is your biology. When you shift your internal frequency toward coherence, toward the specific electromagnetic and neurochemical state associated with what heart math researchers call positive emotional states. States like genuine appreciation, heartfelt care, and the particular quality of love that is not anxious or needy, but simply warm and present. You change the epigenetic environment your genes are operating in. You change which genes are expressed and which are silenced. You change the music. And some of the genes that come back online in a high coherence state are exactly the ones involved in cellular repair, regeneration, and what biologists call the maintenance of biological youth. This is not a vague claim. Researchers at the Institute of Heart Math conducted studies in which participants who maintained states of cardiac coherence over a period of weeks showed measurable upregulation of genes associated with immune function and anti-inflammatory response, alongside measurable downregulation of genes associated with cellular stress and accelerated aging. The coherence state was not just changing how people felt. It was changing which instructions their DNA was acting on. This is your youth aura activating, not as a metaphor, as a measurable shift in the epigenetic landscape of your own body. Let me tell you about a woman named Marin. Marin was 53 years old when she began to notice something she couldn't explain. She had been through a decade that would have aged anyone. A marriage that had slowly drained her. A career that had required her to make herself smaller, quieter, less visible than she actually was. Years of absorbing other people's anxiety and calling it care. By the time she was in her early 50s, she looked, and more importantly felt, like someone who had been living against the grain of herself for a very long time. She wasn't sick. She wasn't in crisis. She was just dimmed. The kind of dimmed that most people accept as the natural consequence of getting older, not recognizing that what they're experiencing is not the passage of time, but the accumulation of incoherence. Marin had a sister named Petra, who was 4 years older. They had grown up in the same house, shared the same genetics, eaten largely the same food for the first 20 years of their lives. But where Maren moved through the world as though she were slightly too much, always modulating, always adjusting, always broadcasting the frequency of someone trying not to take up too much space, Petra had always been different. Petra was not louder than Maren. She was not more confident in the conventional sense. She was simply, consistently herself. She had a quality that people commented on regularly without being able to name it precisely. Something warm and alive. Something that made a room feel different when she entered it. Not because she tried to make it feel different, but because her field was coherent. Because she had never learned to dim herself in the particular way that Maren had. At 57, Petra looked younger than Maren did at 53. Not dramatically, not in a way that would be obvious in a photograph, but in the way that matters more than photographs. In the quality of her energy, in the brightness of her eyes, in the ease with which her body moved, in the way she laughed without checking first whether it was appropriate to laugh. Maren noticed this and felt the familiar sting of comparison, the one that had followed her for most of her life. But then something shifted. She stopped comparing and started asking a different question. Not why does Petra look younger, but what is Petra broadcasting that I am not? That question was the beginning of everything. Because the moment Maren stopped trying to fix her appearance and started paying attention to her signal, she began to notice something she had never noticed before. The constant, low-grade frequency of bracing. The electromagnetic signature of someone perpetually prepared for disappointment. The way her shoulders held the tension of a woman who had been waiting for decades for something to go wrong. She had been broadcasting that signal into her own body, into every cell, with every heartbeat, for years. And the moment she became conscious of it, it began to change. Not because she forced it to change, because consciousness itself is a coherence-generating force. The moment you see the incoherence clearly, you are no longer fully inside it. You have created a gap. And in that gap, your body's native intelligence, the regenerative wisdom that has been there since before you were born, begins to reassert itself. Within a year of making that shift, people who hadn't seen Maren in a while began to say something to her that she had never heard before. Not that she looked younger, though some said that too. They said she looked more like herself. That is the youth aura made visible. It is not the absence of age. It is the presence of coherence. the return of the signal that was always yours, the frequency that your cells recognize as home. There is something worth sitting with in Marin's story that goes beyond the surface observation. The change in her field did not begin when she started a new practice or adopted a new routine. It began the moment she changed the question she was asking. She stopped interrogating her appearance and started interrogating her broadcast. That shift in orientation from outside to inside, from symptom to signal, is itself a coherence-generating act, because it is an act of genuine curiosity directed inward rather than anxious, comparison directed outward. And genuine curiosity, the kind that is open rather than fearful, is one of the emotional states that HeartMath research consistently associates with increased heart rate variability and cardiac coherence. The question itself began the healing. That is not poetry. That is a description of how the nervous system responds to the quality of attention you bring to your own body. I want to pause here and ask you something from the heart. Have you ever had a moment when you could feel your own energy shift? When something in your field changed and the room responded? When you walked into a space and felt your light arrive before your words did? I would love to hear about it. Drop your experience in the comments below. These moments of shared awareness do something real. They remind all of us that this field we're talking about is not abstract. It is lived. It is yours. Now let's go into the practice, because understanding this intellectually is the beginning, but the shift happens in the body. And I want to walk you through exactly how to begin unlocking your youth aura right now, tonight, in this moment. Find a position that allows you to be both alert and at ease. If you're lying down, that's fine. If you're sitting, let your spine be long without being rigid. Let your hands rest somewhere comfortable. And if it feels right, place one hand over your heart, not as a gesture, but as a direct communication. You are about to have a conversation with the most powerful electromagnetic generator in your body. Begin by simply noticing your breath, not changing it yet, just noticing. Is it shallow? Is it held slightly? Is there a quality of bracing in your chest? A subtle tightening that you've been carrying so long you stopped noticing it? That tightening is coherence leaving the building. It is the physical signature of a nervous system that has been on low-grade alert for so long it forgot what rest feels like. Now, very gently, without forcing anything, let your exhale be slightly longer than your inhale. Not dramatically longer. Just a little. Breathe in for a count of 4 and breathe out for a count of 6. This specific ratio, a longer exhale than inhale, activates the parasympathetic branch of your autonomic nervous system. It signals to your hypothalamus that the threat has passed. It begins to lower cortisol. It begins to increase heart rate variability, which is the primary physiological marker of cardiac coherence. You are not just relaxing. You are changing the signal. Stay with this breath for a few cycles. Let each exhale be a release, not a forced release, an allowed one. The difference is important. Forcing release is still bracing. Allowing release is coherence. Now, with your hand on your heart if it's there, I want you to bring to mind something specific, not a concept, a memory, a moment in your life when you felt genuinely, effortlessly well. It doesn't have to be a grand moment. In fact, the smaller the better. Because small moments of genuine well-being are often more electromagnetically potent than peak experiences, because they don't carry the freight of significance. A morning when you woke up and the light was exactly right. A conversation that left you feeling seen. A moment of laughter so pure it surprised you. A walk somewhere beautiful where you forgot, for a little while, to be anything other than present. Find that moment. Let it be specific. Let it have texture and color and temperature. Where were you? What did the air feel like? What sounds were there? Now feel into the emotional quality of that moment. Not the memory of feeling good, but the actual feeling itself, recalled as a living experience in your body right now. HeartMath researchers call this technique heart-focused breathing, with positive emotion activation. And it is one of the most well-documented methods for rapidly shifting the heart into a high coherence state. When you genuinely feel a positive emotion, not think about one, but feel one, your heart rate variability shifts measurably within seconds. The electromagnetic field your heart is broadcasting changes quality, and that changed quality broadcasts into every cell in your body. You are changing the signal your cells are reading. Right now, in this moment, stay here for a minute. Let the feeling in your chest be warm. Let it be real. Let it be the specific warmth of that specific memory, not a generalized good feeling, but that particular one. Because specificity is coherence. Vague, positive thinking produces vague results. Specific felt experience produces specific electromagnetic change. Now I want you to add something. While you hold that warmth in your chest, I want you to bring your awareness to the cells of your body. Not all of them at once. That's too abstract. Start with your hands. Feel your hands. Feel the aliveness in them, the subtle warmth, the pulse of blood, the electromagnetic hum of millions of cells doing their extraordinary work. Your hands contain approximately 27 bones, 29 joints, over 100 muscles, tendons, and ligaments, and billions of cells, all of them alive, all of them reading your signal right now. Let the warmth from your heart travel down your arms and into your hands, not as a visualization exercise, as a genuine electromagnetic event, because that's what it is. Your heart's field permeates your entire body. When the field is coherent and warm, every cell in that field receives a coherent, warm signal. Now expand that awareness to your whole body. Your heart is broadcasting. Your cells are receiving. The signal they are receiving right now, in this moment of warmth and coherence, is different from the signal they were receiving an hour ago, different from the signal they've been receiving for the past year of accumulated stress and bracing, and the low-grade frequency of believing that the best is behind you. This signal says something different. This signal says, regenerate. This signal says, repair. This signal says, the conditions for flourishing are present. Your cells know what to do with that signal. They have always known. They were built for it. The regenerative intelligence in your body is not something you have to create. It is something you have to stop overriding. Stay here as long as feels right. When you're ready, take a deep breath, let it out slowly, and come back to the room. But notice, as you do, that something has shifted. The quality of the air, the feeling in your chest, the subtle sense that something in your body has been given permission to do something it has been waiting to do. That is your youth aura beginning to unlock. Now let's go into the deeper mechanics, because there is a layer of this that most people never reach, and it is, in many ways, the most important one. There is a concept in quantum biology called biophoton emission. Your body emits light. Actual, measurable light. Not metaphorical light, not aura as spiritual concept light, but literal photons generated by the biochemical processes inside your cells. Every living cell emits a small but measurable stream of photons, and the coherence of that emission, the degree to which those photons are organized and synchronized rather than random and chaotic, is a direct indicator of cellular health. German biophysicist Fritz Albert Popp spent decades studying biophoton emission and made a finding that directly connects to everything we've been discussing tonight. Healthy cells emit biophotons in a highly coherent pattern. Stressed, diseased, or aging cells emit them incoherently. The light coming out of a young, healthy, coherent cell is organized, almost laser-like in its quality. The light coming out of a cell under chronic stress is scattered, random, dim. Your body is literally glowing, and the quality of that glow is a direct readout of your cellular coherence. Now here is where it becomes extraordinary. Biophoton emission is not just a byproduct of cellular processes. There is growing evidence that it is also a communication medium. That cells use light to communicate with each other across the body at speeds that chemical signaling alone cannot explain. That the coherent biophoton field of a healthy body is, in a very literal sense, the body's internal light network, carrying information between cells, coordinating processes, maintaining the synchronized intelligence of the whole organism. Popp's measurements showed something else that is directly relevant to what we're doing tonight. When a person moved into a state of relaxed, coherent attention, the biophoton emission from their body became measurably more organized. The photons that had been scattering in random directions began to synchronize. The dim, scattered light of a stressed nervous system began to shift toward the organized, coherent emission of a regulated one. The change was not gradual over weeks. It was observable within the session itself. Within minutes of a shift in internal state, the light coming from the body's cells changed its character. You are not waiting for a slow biological process to catch up with your intention. The cellular light is already responding. Right now, as you listen, as you breathe, as the warmth in your chest settles into something real. When your internal frequency is high, when your heart is coherent, and your nervous system is regulated, and your emotional state is genuinely positive, the biophoton field of your body becomes more coherent. The light network becomes cleaner, clearer, more organized. And the biological processes that depend on that light network, including cellular repair, immune coordination, and the hormonal signaling that governs regeneration work better. Your youth aura is not separate from this. It is this. It is the coherent biophoton field of a body whose internal signal has been restored to its native frequency. The glow that people see and feel around someone who has returned to themselves is not imagination. It is a measurable increase in the coherence and intensity of their cellular light emission. You have been dimming this light, not intentionally, but the chronic stress, the accumulated incoherence, the years of broadcasting a frequency that was never yours. All of it has been scattering your cellular light, dimming the network, slowing the communication, creating the biological environment in which aging accelerates. And you can reverse it. Not all at once, not overnight, though tonight is a beginning, but with genuine, consistent attention to your internal broadcast, you can shift the cellular environment in your body in ways that are measurable, real, and profound. Let's talk about the specific frequencies involved, because this is where the science becomes genuinely remarkable. Your heart generates an electromagnetic field that oscillates at frequencies in the range of 0 to approximately 40 Hertz. The specific pattern of those oscillations, the heart rate variability waveform, is the carrier wave of your cardiac coherence. When that waveform is smooth and sinusoidal, when the rhythm of your heartbeat rises and falls in a gentle, ordered wave, the information it carries into your body is coherent. When it is jagged and irregular, the information is incoherent. But your heart is not the only oscillator in your body. Your brain also generates electromagnetic oscillations, the brainwave frequencies you may have heard of. Delta, theta, alpha, beta, gamma. Each of these frequency bands corresponds to a different state of consciousness and a different quality of internal broadcast. And here is the crucial piece: the relationship between your heart and your brain. The degree to which they are oscillating in synchrony with each other is one of the most powerful determinants of your overall coherence state. Heart math researchers call this state of heart-brain synchrony, cardiac coherence. When your heart and brain are coherently coupled, something extraordinary happens throughout your body. The autonomic nervous system shifts toward parasympathetic dominance. Cortisol levels drop. DHEA levels rise. DHEA, dehydroepiandrosterone, is sometimes called the youth hormone, and for good reason. It is the precursor to both estrogen and testosterone. It supports immune function. It counteracts the effects of cortisol, and its levels are one of the most reliable biological markers of biological age. Young people have high DHEA. Aging people have low DHEA. And chronic stress is one of the primary suppressors of DHEA production. When you shift into cardiac coherence, DHEA production increases. This has been measured directly by HeartMath researchers in controlled studies. Subjects who learned to maintain states of cardiac coherence showed significant increases in DHEA levels over a period of months, alongside significant decreases in cortisol. Their hormonal profile, one of the key biological signatures of age, shifted measurably toward youth. This is your youth aura, in hormonal terms. It is the specific internal chemical environment that your body produces when your heart is coherent and your stress response is regulated. And it is not a state you have to manufacture. It is a state you return to when you stop broadcasting the frequency of chronic stress and begin broadcasting the frequency of your own coherent presence. It is worth pausing on what DHEA actually does inside the body, because the full picture is more remarkable than the summary suggests. Beyond its role as a hormonal precursor, DHEA has been shown to support neurogenesis, the growth of new neurons in the brain. It has been shown to modulate immune function in ways that reduce the chronic low-grade inflammation that researchers now recognize as one of the primary drivers of accelerated aging, a phenomenon they have begun calling inflammaging. It supports bone density, cardiovascular function, and the repair of connective tissue. It is, in a very real sense, the body's own regenerative hormone, and it is produced more abundantly when the internal signal is coherent. You do not need an external supplement to access this. Your body makes it. Your body has always made it. What has been suppressing it is not time. It is the chronic cortisol of a nervous system that was never given permission to fully regulate. Give it that permission now. That is what this practice is. That is what tonight is. Now there is a more layer I want to bring to you, and it is perhaps the most personally important one, because everything we've discussed so far has been about the mechanics of the youth aura, how it works, what it is, what produces it. But there is a question underneath all of that, which is the real question. And it is this: what specifically dimmed your youth aura? What is the precise frequency you have been broadcasting that has been accelerating your cellular aging without your conscious consent? Because it is not the same for everyone, and knowing your specific pattern of incoherence is the key to dissolving it. For most people, the dimming comes from one of three sources, and I want to be precise about each of them because vague spiritual language about releasing the past and stepping into your power, while it sounds beautiful, actually does very little for the specific electromagnetic reality of your body. What changes your cells is specific awareness. So let's be specific. The first source of dimming is what I call temporal displacement. This is the frequency of living primarily in the past or the future rather than in the present moment. And it is extraordinarily common because the human nervous system is specifically designed to learn from the past and anticipate the future. That design is brilliant for survival. It is devastating for cellular coherence. When you are living primarily in the past, replaying old wounds, rerunning old stories, carrying the electromagnetic weight of experiences that ended years ago, but never fully completed their passage through your nervous system. Your body is in a state of chronic, low-grade activation. Not because anything threatening is happening right now, but because your nervous system cannot fully distinguish between a remembered threat and a present one. The stress response activates in response to the memory as though the event were still occurring. And that means the cortisol is still flowing. The telomerase is still being suppressed. The cellular aging is still accelerating. When you are living primarily in the future, in the chronic, low-grade anxiety of what might go wrong, what you might lose, whether you will be okay, the same pattern applies. Your nervous system activates in response to an imagined threat. The stress hormones flow. The coherence drops. The present moment is the only temporal location in which your nervous system can fully regulate. It is the only place where the stress response can complete its cycle and return to baseline. It is the only place where your heart can broadcast a coherent signal without the interference of past pain or future fear. This is why meditation and mindfulness practices have measurable anti-aging effects, not because they are spiritually virtuous, but because they return the nervous system to the present moment, where coherence is possible. Studies have shown that long-term meditators have longer telomeres than non-meditators of the same chronological age. They have higher telomerase activity. Their biophoton emission is more coherent. Their DHEA levels are higher. They are, at the cellular level, biologically younger. One study conducted at the University of California, Davis, measured telomere length in experienced meditators versus non-meditating controls matched for age, and found that the meditators showed telomere profiles consistent with being several years biologically younger than their chronological age. Another study, examining long-term practitioners of loving-kindness meditation, specifically, found that the quality of the emotion generated during practice mattered as much as the duration. Practitioners who could sustain genuine felt warmth, not just the intention of warmth, but the actual physiological warmth of it, showed the most pronounced effects on telomerase activity. The body was responding not to the technique, but to the signal the technique generated. This is why the practice we did earlier asked you to find a specific memory rather than a general concept. The body does not respond to the idea of feeling good. It responds to the actual electromagnetic event of genuinely feeling something warm and real. The specificity is the signal. The present moment is where your youth aura lives. The second source of dimming is identity compression. This is the frequency of having made yourself smaller than you actually are over a long enough period of time that the compression has become invisible. You stopped noticing that you were doing it because it became the background hum of your daily existence. Identity compression happens for many reasons. The need to belong, to be accepted, to avoid conflict, to protect others from the full force of your presence. The accumulated messages from childhood that you were too much, or not enough, or the wrong kind of something. The professional environments that required you to leave parts of yourself at the door. The relationships that only worked when you stayed within certain boundaries. Every time you compress your identity, you compress your field. The electromagnetic signature of someone who is living as a fraction of themselves is measurably different from the signature of someone who is fully present in their own life. The field is smaller. The coherence is lower. The biophoton emission is dimmer. And here is the cellular consequence of that. The body interprets identity compression as a form of chronic stress because it is the effort required to continuously monitor yourself, to stay within the acceptable boundaries, to manage the gap between who you are and who you're presenting yourself as. That effort is carried in your nervous system as tension, as activation, as the low-grade emergency of being not quite yourself. There is a specific physiological signature to identity compression that is worth naming precisely, because recognizing it in your own body is the first step to releasing it. It tends to live in the throat and the chest. A slight constriction around the larynx, the physical site of voice and expression, a compression in the sternum, as though something is being held back from moving forward, a shallowness of breath that keeps the body from fully expanding. These are not random locations. They are the physical sites of suppressed expression and suppressed feeling. And they are held in place by the same nervous system activation that suppresses telomerase and elevates cortisol. When you allow your voice to be fuller, your breath to be deeper, your chest to expand without apology, you are not just making a gesture of self-expression. You are releasing the physiological grip of identity compression. You are changing the tension pattern in your nervous system. You are giving your heart more room to beat freely, which directly affects the coherence of its electromagnetic output. Returning to yourself, not as a dramatic act, but as a quiet, consistent practice of allowing more of who you actually are to be present in each moment, is one of the most powerful anti-aging practices available. Because it reduces the chronic tension of identity compression, it allows the nervous system to regulate. It allows the heart to broadcast a coherent signal. It allows the cells to receive the message. The emergency is over. You can regenerate now. The third source of dimming is what I call the aging belief. And this one is subtle but extraordinarily powerful because it operates at the level of expectation. And expectation is one of the most potent modulators of biological reality. The aging belief is the deep, often unconscious conviction that decline is inevitable, that the body is on a one-way trajectory, that the best years are behind you, that there is nothing to be done about it except manage the decline with grace. This belief is so thoroughly embedded in our culture that most people have never questioned it. It is the water they swim in, the air they breathe, the story they tell themselves every time they look in the mirror and catalog what has changed. But here is what the science of epigenetics and psychoneuroimmunology has been quietly demonstrating for decades. Beliefs are not just mental events. They are biological events. The conviction that the body is declining activates the biological processes of decline, not through magic, but through the very real mechanism of the stress response, the hormonal cascade, the epigenetic regulation of gene expression. When you believe you are aging, you broadcast the frequency of aging, and your cells, reading that signal, express the genes associated with aging. This is not a spiritual claim. This is a description of how the placebo and nocebo effects work at the cellular level. The nocebo effect, the biological harm caused by negative expectation, is well documented in clinical research. People who are told they will experience a negative outcome from a medical treatment often do, even when the treatment is inert. The expectation itself creates the biological reality. There is a study by Harvard psychologist Ellen Langer that illustrates this with a precision that is difficult to dismiss. In 1979, Langer took a group of men in their 70s and placed them in an environment designed to replicate the world as it had existed 20 years earlier, when they were in their 50s. The environment was immersive. The music, the newspapers, the television programs, the conversations, all of it reflected 1959. The men were not asked to pretend to be younger. They were simply placed in an environment that treated them as though they were. Within 1 week, measurable physical changes had occurred. Grip strength increased. Posture improved. Scores on cognitive tests improved. Independent judges who rated photographs of the men taken before and after the study rated the after photographs as showing men who looked measurably younger. The aging belief had been temporarily suspended by the environment, and the body had responded to that suspension biologically. The belief that you are past your prime is a nocebo running continuously in your body. And shifting that belief, not to a false positivity that denies reality, but to a genuine, evidence-based understanding that your body is more responsive and regenerative than you have been told, shifts the broadcast, changes the signal, gives your cells different instructions. Your youth aura is not a return to a younger version of yourself. It is not nostalgia made physical. It is the frequency of a body that has been released from the nocebo of inevitable decline and returned to the living, present moment intelligence of its own regenerative capacity. It is what happens when you stop broadcasting the story of your decline and start broadcasting the truth of your coherence. And that truth is available to you right now, not someday, tonight. Let me give you the second layer of the practice, because the first practice we did was about returning to coherence. This one is about something more specific. This one is about dissolving the aging belief at the cellular level. Come back to your breath. The same pattern. In for 4, out for 6. Let your body settle. Now I want you to locate the aging belief in your body, not as a thought, but as a physical sensation. Because beliefs are not only mental events, they are held in the body. Where do you feel the conviction that your best years are behind you? Where does the story of decline live in your physical form? For some people, it's in the chest, a kind of heaviness or constriction. For others, it's in the belly, a low-grade dread. For others, it's in the shoulders, the weight of accumulated time. Find where it lives in you. Don't try to fix it or release it yet. Just locate it. Feel its texture, its temperature, the specific quality of the sensation. You are bringing consciousness to something that has been operating below consciousness for a long time. And as we established earlier, the moment you bring consciousness to an incoherent pattern, you are no longer fully inside it. You have created a gap. Now, from that gap, I want you to ask your body a question. Not your mind, your body. Ask it, what do you actually know about your own capacity to regenerate? Not what the culture has told you, not what the mirror has shown you. What does your body, at the level of its own cellular intelligence, know about its capacity to repair, renew, and return to vitality? Let the answer come as a sensation rather than a thought. Feel for the part of your body that knows how to heal a cut, how to fight off an infection, how to rebuild muscle after exertion, how to grow new cells to replace the old ones. That intelligence is in you right now. It has been in you every moment of your life. It is not diminished. It is not gone. It may be quieter than it once was, because it has been operating in an incoherent environment for a long time. But it is there, and it is listening. Now speak to it, not out loud unless you want to, but with the genuine felt intention of your heart. Say to that regenerative intelligence in your body, I know you're here. I'm sorry I've been broadcasting a signal that made it harder for you to work. I'm ready to give you a cleaner signal now. Feel what happens in your body when you say that. Notice any shift in the sensation you located a moment ago. It may be subtle. It may be significant. Either is right. You are not forcing a transformation. You are initiating a conversation with the most ancient, most intelligent biological system on Earth. The living body's own drive toward coherence and regeneration. This is not a one-time practice. This is a conversation you will return to again and again. Each time you return to it, the signal gets cleaner. The gap between the aging belief and your actual cellular reality gets wider. The youth aura gets brighter. Now here is something I want you to understand about the timeline of cellular change because this is where people sometimes lose faith. The changes we are talking about are real, and they are measurable, but they do not all happen overnight. Some of them do. The shift in cardiac coherence happens within seconds. The hormonal changes, the drop in cortisol, and the rise in DHEA begin within minutes and accumulate over days and weeks. The changes in gene expression, the epigenetic shifts, occur over days to weeks of consistent practice. The changes in telomere length and telomerase activity occur over months. But here is what does happen tonight. The signal changes. The information your cells are receiving changes. The biological environment shifts. The conditions for regeneration are established, and your body, which has been waiting for exactly this signal, begins to respond. Think of it like this. You have been living in a house where the heating system was broken for years. The house has been cold. The plants have been struggling. The pipes have been under stress. Tonight, you fix the heating system. The house does not warm up instantly, but the moment the heat comes on, everything in the house begins to orient toward warmth. The plants begin to unfurl. The pipes begin to relax. The process of restoration has begun, and it will continue every hour, every day, as long as the heat stays on. Your coherence is the heat. Your youth aura is the warmth that your body has been waiting for. And tonight, you turned it on. There is a phenomenon in physics called resonance that I want to bring in here because it illuminates something important about why the youth aura is not just about your own biology, but about the field you exist in and the people you exist in it with. Resonance is what happens when two oscillating systems come into contact and begin to synchronize their frequencies. The classic demonstration is tuning forks. Strike one, tuning fork, and hold it near another of the same frequency. And the second fork will begin to vibrate without being struck. The first fork's vibration transfers to the second through the medium of air. And because they share the same natural frequency, the second fork resonates in response. Your energy field does this with other energy fields. When you are in a state of high coherence, broadcasting the frequency of your youth aura, you do not just affect your own biology. You affect the biology of everyone who comes into your field. HeartMath researchers have documented this directly. When one person in a group is in a state of cardiac coherence, the heart rhythms of other people in their immediate vicinity begin to shift toward greater coherence as well. The coherent field is literally entraining the less coherent fields around it. This is why some people make you feel more alive, more energized, more yourself when you're around them. It is not personality, it is physics. Their coherent field is entraining yours. And when your youth aura is active, when your field is coherent and bright and fully present, you do this for others. You become a source of resonance, a tuning fork for coherence, a walking reminder that the body knows how to regenerate when it receives the right signal. This is one of the reasons why the youth aura is not vanity. It is not about looking younger for the sake of appearance. It is about the quality of presence you bring to every room, every relationship, every moment. A person broadcasting the frequency of coherence and vitality is a gift to everyone in their field. Not because they're performing youth, but because they're radiating the signal that reminds other nervous systems what regulation feels like, what safety feels like, what the body's native intelligence feels like when it's not being overridden by chronic stress. Your youth aura is not just for you. It is a broadcast. And what you broadcast, the field responds to. And speaking of that, I want to ask you something. Has there ever been a moment when you felt your own warmth activate a room? When someone looked at you differently because of something they felt in your field, rather than anything you said? When you noticed your own light doing something before your words could? Those moments are real, and they are worth naming. Share yours in the comments. When we witness each other's radiance, even in a few words, the field strengthens for all of us. Let's talk about the specific practices that sustain the youth aura over time, because a single session of coherence is a beginning, not a completion. The youth aura is not a state you achieve once and then maintain effortlessly. It is a practice, a daily return, a consistent choice to broadcast the frequency of coherence rather than the frequency of accumulated stress and aging belief. The first practice is what I call the morning signal. Before you do anything else in the morning, before you check your phone, before you engage with the demands of the day, spend 5 minutes in cardiac coherence. The same breath pattern. In for 4, out for 6. The same activation of genuine positive emotion from a specific memory or a felt sense of appreciation for something real and present in your life. This sets your baseline broadcast for the day. It is the frequency your cells will be reading for the hours that follow. 5 minutes of genuine coherence in the morning is worth more than an hour of meditation done later in the day after you've already been pulled into incoherence, because it establishes the signal before the interference begins. The reason the morning window is so powerful has to do with the specific neurochemistry of waking. In the first 30 minutes after you wake, your brain is transitioning from the theta brainwave state of light sleep into the alpha state of relaxed wakefulness before it moves into the beta state of active cognition. During that transition window, the brain is unusually receptive. The prefrontal cortex, which is the seat of critical analysis and the part of your mind most likely to dismiss or filter incoming information, is not yet fully online. The signal you introduce in that window goes in more directly, more deeply, and sets the tone for the neurochemical environment the rest of the day runs on. This is why the morning signal practice, done in those first minutes before the day's noise begins, has an outsized effect relative to its length. You are writing on a clean surface. The signal you write there is the one your cells read all day. The second practice is what I call the coherence return. This is a micro practice, 30 seconds to 2 minutes, done throughout the day whenever you notice that your signal has dropped. Whenever you feel the tension of bracing, the weight of the aging belief, the scatter of temporal displacement. 3 slow breaths with a longer exhale. A single moment of genuine appreciation for something specific and present. A brief return to the warmth in your chest. This is not about maintaining a perfect state of coherence all day, which is neither possible nor necessary. It is about shortening the duration of incoherence. Every time you return to coherence, you interrupt the cortisol cascade. You give your telomerase a break. You give your cells a moment of clean signal. The cumulative effect of many small coherence returns across a day is greater than the effect of one long coherence session, because it changes the average signal quality across all the hours your cells are operating. Your cells are not averaging your best moments and your worst moments and calling it even. They are responding to the signal in real time, continuously. Every moment of coherence you add is a moment of clean signal your cells receive. Every coherence return is a moment of telomerase activity that would not otherwise have occurred. Every breath with a longer exhale is a moment of cortisol suppression. It accumulates. Over days and weeks and months, it accumulates into a measurably different biological age. The third practice is what I call the evening integration. At the end of the day, before sleep, spend a few minutes reviewing the day, not for what went wrong, which is the default setting of the stress-habituated mind, but for what was genuinely good, not in a forced gratitude journal way, but with the specific, felt quality of real appreciation. Find 3 moments from the day that carried even a small charge of genuine positive feeling. A good cup of something warm, a moment of connection, a task completed, a piece of light through a window. Let yourself feel each one specifically, not as a list, but as a relived experience. This practice has been shown to increase heart rate variability during sleep, which means your body spends more time in the coherent state during the hours when cellular repair is most active. Sleep is the body's primary regenerative window. The signal you broadcast as you enter sleep determines the quality of the regeneration that happens while you're there. During sleep, and specifically during the deep, slow wave stages of sleep, the body does the majority of its cellular housekeeping. Human growth hormone is released in its largest daily pulse during slow wave sleep, and it is one of the primary drivers of cellular repair and tissue regeneration. The immune system conducts its most active surveillance and repair work during sleep. The brain clears metabolic waste products through the glymphatic system, a process that only operates fully during sleep. The quality of all of this regenerative activity is directly modulated by the autonomic state you enter sleep in. A nervous system that enters sleep in a coherent, regulated state spends more time in the deep, slow wave stages where this repair work happens. A nervous system that enters sleep in a state of activation, carrying the day's stress load, spends more time in lighter sleep stages and wakes less restored. The evening integration practice is not a wind-down ritual in the soft, optional sense. It is a holocycle preparation for the most important regenerative window in your 24-hour cycle. What you feel as you fall asleep is what your cells work in all night. The fourth practice is the one that many people find most challenging, and it is the most important. It is the practice of returning to yourself, of noticing each day the moments when you are compressing your identity, making yourself smaller, broadcasting the frequency of someone who is trying not to take up too much space, and choosing instead to be a little more present, a little more yourself, a little more willing to let your actual field be felt. This does not require dramatic change. It does not require you to suddenly become someone who speaks louder or takes up more physical space, or performs confidence. It is quieter than that. It is the practice of noticing when you are about to dim yourself and asking, in that moment, what would it feel like to not do that? To let the warmth that's actually in your chest be felt. To let the thought you were about to suppress be spoken. To let the laugh that was rising be laughed. To let your field be the size it actually is, rather than the size you've decided is acceptable. Each time you choose to not dim yourself, your field gets brighter. Your coherence increases. Your cells receive a cleaner signal. Your youth aura strengthens, not because you're performing youth, but because you're inhabiting yourself. And inhabiting yourself fully is the single most coherence generating act available to a human being. Now, I want to address something that may be moving through you as you listen to this. A quiet but persistent voice that says, "Yes, but I've been doing this for so long." The dimming, the stress, the aging belief, the incoherence. It's been years, maybe decades. Is it really possible to shift something that has been running that long? Yes. And here is why. Your body is not a record of your past. It is a response to your present signal. This is one of the most important and least understood truths in all of biology. Every cell in your body is replaced over time. Your red blood cells live for about 4 months. Your skin cells turn over in about 2 to 4 weeks. The cells lining your gut renew in 3 to 5 days. Even your bones, which feel permanent and unchanging, are in a constant state of remodeling, with osteoclasts breaking down old bone tissue and osteoblasts building new bone tissue in a continuous cycle. The skeleton you have today is not the skeleton you had 10 years ago. It has been entirely rebuilt, cell by cell, over the years that have passed. Every new cell that your body builds is built according to the instructions it receives from the epigenetic environment at the time of its construction, which means that every new cell your body builds from this moment forward will be built in response to the signal you are broadcasting now, not the signal you were broadcasting last year, not the signal you were broadcasting this morning. The signal you are broadcasting as each new cell is created. This is not a small thing. This is everything. It means that the body you are living in is continuously, actively, right now, being rebuilt. And the quality of that rebuilding is determined by the quality of your current broadcast. You are not trying to undo the past. You are changing the instructions for the future. And the future starts with the next cell your body builds, which is happening right now. Your youth aura is not a return to something you lost. It is an emergence of something that was always there, the regenerative intelligence of your own biology, finally receiving the coherent signal it needs to do what it was designed to do. There is one more thing I want to leave you with tonight, and it is perhaps the most quietly revolutionary idea in everything we've discussed. Most of the anti-aging industry is built on the premise that aging is something that happens to you from the outside and must be resisted from the outside. Better products, better procedures, better interventions. The premise is that your body is a passive recipient of time and circumstance, and your job is to fight back. What the science of cardiac coherence, epigenetics, and biophoton emission reveals is something entirely different. Your body is not a passive recipient. It is an active responder. It is continuously, intelligently, powerfully responding to the signal it receives from your internal broadcast. And that broadcast is not fixed. It is not determined by your age or your genetics or your history. It is determined by the quality of your present moment coherence. You are not fighting aging. You are broadcasting a frequency, and the frequency of coherence, of genuine positive emotion, of present moment awareness, of full inhabitation of yourself, is the frequency at which your body's regenerative intelligence comes back online. You don't need to become young. You need to stop broadcasting old. And old, in this context, is not a number. It is a signal. It is the signal of chronic stress, temporal displacement, identity compression, and the deep, incoherent belief that the best is behind you. That signal is not you. It was never you. It was the accumulation of a world that profits from your incoherence, that needs you to believe you are past your prime so that you will keep buying the things it sells to manage your decline. Your actual frequency is something else entirely. Your actual frequency is what was broadcasting before the world taught you to dim it, before the stress accumulated, before the aging belief took hold, before you learned to make yourself smaller than you are. That frequency is still there. It has been there this whole time, underneath the interference. And tonight, you've been listening to something that helped you remember it. Your youth aura is not a promise about what you will look like. It is a description of what you actually are when the incoherence is cleared away. It is the electromagnetic signature of a body whose regenerative intelligence is fully online, whose cells are receiving a clean, coherent signal, whose heart is broadcasting the frequency of genuine vitality rather than the frequency of accumulated stress. It is available to you right now, tonight. Not as a distant goal, but as a present reality that you are already moving toward with every coherent breath, every moment of genuine appreciation, every choice to be a little more fully yourself. The cells that your body builds tonight in the regenerative window of sleep will be built in response to the signal you're broadcasting as you drift toward rest. Let that signal be this one: warm, coherent, present, alive. The signal of someone who has remembered what they actually are. Not old, not past their prime, not in decline, radiant, regenerating, returning. Your frequency has just unlocked your youth aura, and your cells are already responding. Before you go, I want to ask you something, and I genuinely want to hear your answer. What is the one thing, the one specific thing that you have been dimming in yourself that you are ready to stop dimming? Not the big answer, not the whole story of your life, just one thing, the one you already know, the one that came to you while you were listening tonight. Leave it in the comments, not for anyone else's benefit, but as an act of declaration. Because when you name what you're no longer willing to suppress, you change the broadcast. You make it real in a way that internal intention alone cannot. The field responds to declaration. Name your light. If this video found you at the right moment, consider returning to it in the morning. Stillness before the day begins its noise, or in the quiet just before sleep, when your field is most open and receptive. Those are the hours when what you've heard tonight can settle most deeply into the body. And if someone came to mind while you were listening, someone whose light has been dimmed a little longer than it should be, consider sharing this with them. When you do, something real happens. Their awareness of their own field begins to activate. Your coherence and theirs strengthen through resonance, and the collective luminosity grows, one nervous system at a time. Carry tonight with you, not as a memory of something you heard, but as a shift in the signal you're broadcasting. Return to the coherence practice tomorrow morning. Set the signal before the day sets it for you. Come back to the evening integration before sleep. Let your body spend the night in the frequency of regeneration rather than the frequency of accumulated stress. You are not starting over. You are returning to the frequency that was always yours, the one that was broadcasting before the world taught you to doubt it, before the stress accumulated, before you learned the aging belief. That frequency is coherent. It is warm. It is alive. It is the specific electromagnetic signature of a body that knows it is capable of more than it has been allowed to express. And it is yours. It has always been yours. Your cells are listening. Give them something worth hearing.